I'm Sonya Crawford. I am the 4-H livestock agent in Hendry County. And so I do basically like some of your group leaders. I know Lauren was here the last group, and you probably saw some of the other agents, and this is...
Oh, I'm Amy Perryman. I'm a certified ultrasound technician. I serve Florida, Georgia, and Alabama.
And we're going to talk to you today about what is ultrasound? Why do we wear ultrasound cattle? How does what we see over here relate to what you see over here? And I know this morning you had a pre-test. Did all of you know all of the answers to the pre-test?
I know them all.
Oh, well, that's great. That's not what we wanted to hear. I know that. You laughed about it. But so we're going to give you an idea of some of the, there's 3 questions that we submitted to Miss Andrea, and we're going to, hopefully you'll be able to answer those after you see those on the post-test. Anyways, when you look at what we're going to see today to here, the animals, these are going to be graded. You got, they're graded on the degree of maturity, the degree of marbling. So you probably saw one of the questions, what's the highest degree of marbling? We have several different degrees of marbling over here, beginning with our highest, which is prime. As you see here, what gives that the prime indication? What do you call that? Yes, that is fat. What is the marbling? So, what is that fat within that ribeye referred to as? Intramuscular fat or intermuscular fat? Intramuscular fat. Intra is in between, and then inter is on the outside. So then we move on down to our choice. So this is our lowest. You have 3 degrees. Here you got moderate, modest, and small. So this is the least, and this is the highest. So we'll see the different in the degrees, and then I'm going to show you what the actual meat looks like. This is select. You don't really see many fat flexes, do you? So that is the lowest degree on the select degree of marbling. So then when you look at this one, would you call that choice or select?
Select.
That is select. That's probably the minimal level that you can have. So that is low select.
It's your cheap meat at the grocery store.
That is your cheap meat at the grocery store. Can anybody guess? Did this come from Florida or this come from Mexico or Brazil?
Mexico.
This is actually was from Brazil.
What's why I do?
So that might go into hamburger to make your
Usually.
present lean different.
It's off the
So
chart.
looking at this one, think this is choice or do you think this is prime?
Choice.
This is choice. As you can see, the different degrees of marbling in between here. You have your secondary muscle, and then you have your ribeye, and then your fat over the eye is going to be measured 3/4 up, and we're going to see actually the picture Miss Amy goes through. So 3/4 up, you're going to look at the fat, and we're going to have our probe that we're going to be able to measure. And this is actually done in the slaughterhouse where they take all of this. So it's a United States Department of Agriculture program in the slaughterhouse. Miss Amy's going to go through and this so she can maybe help somebody with their genetics. Maybe they need to select a different type of wool. Maybe they need to select a different type of dam depending on their program. But okay, so now we're looking at these. You have 2 pieces of meat. Now, do you think this is prime, choice, or select?
Prime.
This is prime. As you can see, the percentage of fat. So, of course, I'll go through and I'll have a cheat sheet if I'm in a slaughterhouse. You can these are actually a United States Department of Ag card. And so then you're thinking, well, why is there 2 on this plate? Do you think they're cut at the same place on that ribeye roll, or do you think it's different? So then you have one that's cut from the round end, 12th, 13th rib, and one that's closer to the chuck end. So looking at the 2 pieces, which one will have the bigger muscle on the ribeye, the round end or the chuck end?
Chuck in.
Actually, the round end will have the bigger ribeye. So you can think of, how do you measure that ribeye? Think about how many square inches is a quarter? 1 square inch, 3 square inches?
A quarter.
A quarter. One. So you think about how many quarters can fit in this ribeye. It's about how many square inches that ribeye is. So we're going to see that on the ultrasound, and you're going to be able to guess how many square inches before Miss Amy's software tells us the actual answer. So being that these, so then again, which one is the round end, the top or the bottom? The top, that is correct. Now there's nothing wrong with it. It's just where it's actually measured. I like a lot of ribeye, or some people like the secondary muscle that's closest to the chuck end. There's people that will go to the restaurant and say, I want one that's closest to the chuck end. Well, yesterday I went to get this meat at a place in Fort Myers. I said, I need one closest to the 12th and 13th rib. Guess which piece of steak they brought me out? The bottom. And I even described what I needed. So I'm glad he did that, because I'm able to use as a demonstration. So with that being said, you have different, how many of you have go to the grocery store with your mom or dad and pick out meat? So knowing where the cut comes from, knowing your bones, we don't have time to go through all that, will be helpful on, and knowing which is your high price meat cuts. A lot of your meat, middle meats are going to be your high price meat cuts. So knowing that, you can sometimes get mislabeled meat cuts for a lesser amount of money. We're human. Mistakes happen.
Ready? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a demonstration on a heifer here. And you guys have this nifty TV that makes it large, so I'll use my screen over here, but you guys can watch and see. You guys can come on and get up, and we'll come on over to the screen now. You're all in the shade and all comfy and everything. All right, Austin, I'm ready. So what we're doing is we're actually using ultrasound waves to take pictures of the meat while the animal is alive. Now, do you think that this hurts the animal? Is it invasive?
No.
No, doesn't hurt at all. Putting the probe on their bodies doesn't hurt at all.
So here's a probe. Here's what this looks like if you're using it in a slaughterhouse. That's what their probe looks like. Use it for ultrasound.
So I have to use this old nasty vegetable oil because the sound waves won't penetrate with just the air. We have to have a copulent that makes the sound waves penetrate through the skin.
Like pregnancy jelly?
Now, do you think ultrasound is invasive or non-invasive? Are we hurting that animal?
Non-invasive.
Correct.
And we notice that this looks like heavily, maybe a purebred Brahma heifer. Typically, unfortunately, Brahmas don't excel in marbling.
What do you see here? A lot of black or a lot of white?
A lot of black.
So the white is what again? Marbling.
So the more what looks like kind of like snow, the better off you are.
Now, can you see the ribeye on this ultrasound?
Yeah. She doesn't give you a very good picture, but I'm going to try it again. Some of them give you a better picture than others.
And Miss Amy's going to draw it out, and she's going to draw it out in red. But you can see it here? That is how many square inches. She's going to measure that. So how many quarters do you think will fit in there? Just guess.
Yeah.
Come on, somebody guess.
7. 6 or 7. 12.
All right, see.
Oh, you're going across, right?
This whole,
20.
20 or 20.
this whole muscle right here.
Yep. 17. 20.
20.
I don't know. I'm going high here.
Big money, big money.
10. 11.
Okay. Well, we will measure that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of my picture. So from that picture, we're going to measure and see how big that ribeye muscle is. And then we're going to measure and see how much fat. Miss Sonya, you want to show them the fat line? Again, she doesn't have a very...
Okay, see, you have layers of fat here.
Right?
You have the first layer is your skin, and then you have your fat layer start. And she's going to start from this fat layer down to here to see what
How much
the
fat?
tenths of fat she has.
Okay. Now, these pictures I'm about to take, this is the picture of their marbling. And you can see those humps right there. That's the 11th, 12th, and 13th rib. So what we're doing is we're actually mimicking the process of grading in the processing plant, okay? So normally a grader would look and see how much marbling is in that muscle between the 12th and 13th rib, and that's exactly the spot that I'm in. So I'm going to take a series of 4 pictures, and then the software will calculate how much marbling is in this heifer's ribeye. Do you think there's very much in it? Not a whole lot. Okay. So now y'all can watch me, and I'm going to go ahead and measure.
And in the slaughterhouse, there's a USDA employee that goes in and they will grade the beef. They'll look at, again, the degree of maturity, the degree of marbling, and they'll place a yield grade on that, yield grade 1 through 5, and that depends on, you have to look at the hot carcass weight, you'll have to look at the internal fat, which is kidney, pelvic, and heart fat, and the hot carcass weight. Do you think that animal is the same going in as it is for the hot carcass weight? No, it's going to be a lot less compared to what it went in, because you get rid of everything, and it goes in, and all that is a calculation to know, taking in consideration all those factors, which she's going to tell you what that fat over the eye is, which is measured 3/4 of the way up at that 12th, 13th rib on the ribeye.
Okay, so you guys, anybody see what's the size of the ribeye?
11.
11. She's got about 11-inch ribeye, and she has 0.22 back fat.
Okay, 0.22 back fat will be, think about, this is what that's going to look like. That's approximately 2.2 tenths of back fat. That's not much at all.
It's less than 1/4 of an inch of fat. Okay, so she's not very fat. Now we're going to do, now you'll see, if you noticed, those were all things that I measured myself, right? I took a picture and I measured those. The next thing, the marbling, is actually the software. The software determines how much marbling is in that piece of meat. So you see that box, that red box I just put on there? Right here? Mm-hmm. So the software will calculate what percentage of that box is marbling.
Or like what percentage of it is white?
Yes.
Okay. Does she have a name? Just out of curiosity.
Probably not. And these are probably anywhere from 14 to 16 months of age.
Okay.
So of course they're going to need, if they go to slaughterhouse today, they may not grade the highest, but they need more days on feed. So in industry and feedlots, they're going to feed them longer. So there could be anywhere from 18 to 20-something months of age.
I thought it was just steers that were used for slaughter. I didn't know that heifers.
You have steers and heifers.
Okay. But not like bulls.
So usually your bulls can go to the slaughterhouse, but they're probably going to be turned into hamburger.
Because there's like no fat to them, barely.
I have a quick question. So at the slaughterhouse, is every single animal graded? There's a person on staff, and that's what they do.
There's going to be a person on staff most of the time. It's a service that they pay for, and they come through. And there are some that they'll put no roll. Maybe that's going to go in your hamburger. It depends on. And there are some slaughterhouses. Let's say there may not be USDA inspected, so they're not going to be able to sell that meat.
That's why if you get your meat done at a small processor, it'll say not for sale. Generally, those small processors don't have a grader on site.
So those are coming back to your grocery store. That's going to be, so you're going to put choice, select, prime on those
Is that
labels,
mandatory
those animals.
that they have that, or no? It's not. It's optional. So whatever you can price the beef at, basically.
Right.
Okay.
So do you have any part in like the judging, like for like the statewide, like Sela Albritton got?
Are you from Hardy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I collect the pictures and I interpret the
I knew
pictures,
that.
but Dr. Carr is the one who judges it now.
Car.
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of the fairs do this, and you're part of that carcass merit
I
program.
remember her scanning ours.
Yeah. So.
And so ultrasounding is very important to, especially teaching the youth what especially happens in what we're doing as far as what they can do in the slaughterhouse, what they can do to select genetics on getting more intramuscular fat and so forth.
So this heifer is a 1.3 IMF, so that means that she's standard.
So she's going to be less than this,
Wow.
which is standard. So if she
Hamburger.
went to slaughter today, she's going to be hamburger, but
right,
she may be used to change. How many of you have gone to the grocery store and looked at the labels? You ever noticed on hamburger it says 80-20? You ever wondered what 80-20 meant, or 90-10? That means the leanness. So 80% lean, 20% fat. Some of it to change, depending, they may have to use different meat. They need a different fat, or they need more lean. So that all goes back into pricing. So let's go over to this board. And I just, let me grab my paper. We put this together this morning, and also had two different market reports. This is on the grid. So you think, well, why do we have different dollar signs? Depending on how they're actually graded at that slaughterhouse may depend on how much you're going to get paid. So everything is based on per hundredweight. So do you think they're going to get $300 per pound?
No.
No. So that will be $300 per CWT, which means per hundredweight. So how much would that mean per pound? $3. So in industry, there's going to be a base rate, and it depends. Going to depend on what's the heart carcass weight, what is she yielding, what degree of marbling. All those can be taken in consideration, especially on some of these specialty markets. So looking at what the base rate, when we looked at yesterday, if they want a 600 to 900 pound carcass just to get the $3. This is just an estimate, because yesterday it was actually $3.03. $3.03, yes, 303 per hundredweight. So then you think about, look at the prime, cab, choice, selects. Cab, certified Angus beef, so that's a niche market. What color are predominantly Angus beef? Do you think they can be another color?
Yes.
Yeah, we had one earlier, was white Angus. So then going back in here, just looking at this grid, which one would get the lowest amount? The yield grade 1 would be the best. Yield grade 5 would be the worst. And it all goes into degree of maturity. So let's say anything AB is 30 months or less. So we know these are A maturity cattle that we just saw. So which one's going to bring you the least amount of money? Standard. And a yield grade what? Right. Okay, looking at a yield grade 1, which would you want that to be to get the highest amount of money? Prime. So again, back into genetics, they're going to go back and reevaluate those. Some people are going to retain ownership, and they'll go back and they'll reevaluate every year. What do they need to change? So can you change based on genetics?
Well, yeah.
So you can breed differently based on genetics.
You can sell that bull.
You can sell that bull, and that bull can go to the market, or maybe you need to. So always, and there are actually kids when we did. How many of you said you raised steers? There may be someone that goes back and says, I want to win this carcass competition. So they're going to go back and say, they're going to evaluate where they purchased their animal from. Go back and look at what the sire and the dam's EPDs are. How many of you know what the abbreviation EPD stands for? Expected progeny differences. Yes, it is difficult to interpret those and learn it from day one. It's something you need to study over time. But IMF stands for what?
Intra.
What is the highest quality grade? Prime. What is the least quality grade that you're going to see in the grocery store?
No choice. Or select.
Select.
Does the minus mean that they're losing money?
Yes.
The minus means that they're getting less than the base rate.
Okay.
So this is what this was printed yesterday. So you see my base rate was 303.17. So okay, let's say that 600 to 900 pound carcass, you're not getting plus or minus for that. So let's say if my carcass ended up being 400 to 500 pounds, that means that's going to be deducted. Maybe it was prime. They're going to end up they're going to deduct from that 303.17, 29 it was a prime 1. So then you plus it 1362 to get the 287.50. So, some people pay attention to this because they want to make the most money. How many of you want to lose money this day and time? Everything costs more money these days.
2 minutes.
So looking back at the ultrasound, so looking back here on this diagram, what were these, Miss Amy said? Ribs. Okay, so where was how many fat layers do you think you see there?
3.
What is that top layer? Skin. What is this little area here?
Intramuscular.
The little area, what would you call that? The rib eye. That is correct. And the fat flexes are?
Marbling.
Marbling.